Hey folks, Victor here. Now today I'm at the ACT Motorcycle Club in Canberra interviewing a good old mate of mine who's an Army veteran and Navy technically as well. Come along, check it out. He's a very interesting character.
You're an idiot.
Hey folks, Victor here. I'm here with an old mate of mine today, Cliffo. Now Cliffo is a veteran, an Army veteran. Actually, you were Navy as well, weren't you?
Navy as well, yeah.
Ah, well there you go. Now, I do have a sheet of questions here that I'm going to be asking. Now these are courtesy of a mutual friend of ours, Mork. So Mork, if you're watching it, I finally got around to it. Anyway, first question. What age were you when you enlisted?
Well, 17. I joined the Navy on the 17th of August 1979.
Wow, I was only 10.
Yeah, shut up. Yeah, thanks for the old mate, by the way. Yeah, I actually, my birthday's in June, and so I turned 17 in June and then applied for the July intake as an adult recruit down at HMA Cerberus. But they picked up that my eyes weren't quite right, so they held me over for the optical sort of opinion, and then we went into the August intake in Marine Division at HMA Cerberus, 17th of August 1979. Last century.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Second question. Did you always want to join the Defence Forces, or did something bring it about?
I think it was always part of the zeitgeist. My father was in the Army, though there was a divorce in the family around the age of 8.
Yeah.
The early childhood was spent around Army bases and the like during the Vietnam era, of course.
Okay.
So even though Vietnam wasn't necessarily something which I was directly sort of aware of, it was just part of the background, I suppose, and certainly living on Army bases and the like. And I do have early happy memories of going out to the transport yard at Seymour and Puckapunyal with the old man who was part of the logistics and service corps and looked after the sort of the motor pool.
Yep.
And got to have a ride in all sorts of cool vehicles.
Oh, that'd be cool.
So as part of the thing, and then I was in the Navy Cadets during high school. So transitioned when we moved between primary school and high school from being in the Cub Scouts when I would have been old enough for the regular Scouts.
Yep.
But that would have meant the cost of a uniform and the like, whereas the Naval Reserve Cadets, which is the Navy-sponsored Sea Scouts, for want of a better word, the youth division sort of thing of the Navy, we were local, and I joined them at the age of sort of 14 to through 17. So, you know, we had holiday visits to Navy ships and courses and things at Navy bases.
Yep.
So the lifestyle, I suppose, was always in the background, and it was always fairly favourable. And so it was always going to be one of the services. Which one it was going to be was really a case of how it turned out, and because of the Navy Cadets, I ended up in the Navy first. Yeah.
Cool. So here's an interesting one. What role did you do? Was it what you expected? I suspect not.
No. Well, as it went on with the future career, as we'll go explore, no doubt, not really, because when I first applied to the Navy, I was interested in the aircraft carrier we had at HMAS Melbourne, and the fact that we had an air arm, and I actually applied as a aircraft handler.
Okay.
To work on the flight deck on the aircraft carrier, which would have been a very short career because not very long longer we lost the aircraft carrier. In fact, I was on HMAS Melbourne on the final cruise that we actually had aircraft flying off of.
You were communications, weren't you?
Yeah, I ended up in communications. So what happens as you go through recruiting and the recruit school experience is they start giving you a choice of the jobs they want you to do. Okay. Based on the pre-enlistment psychological stuff, and then the experience of watching you during the recruit school thing. So at the end of the sort of the 3 months, they come along with a bit of a list, and it's sort of divided into the technical positions all the way down to every job's got its merits, of course, down to the less technical or whatever, you know. And I was sort of in that ranking of I could be any kind of technician, weapons technician, communications technician or whatever. the world was sort of there. And communications I did have an interest in because I had, through the Navy cadets, an interest in shortwave.
Yep.
During the time of the Soviet Union and the like.
Yep.
And the other one was that it pays well.
Okay.
That communications, because it's a secure job that requires cryptography and the handling of secret material and the like, was pay level 6.
Okay.
Straight up. So,
Yep.
and and it was an office job to some extent, but good pay as well. So ended up in communications for 6.5 years. Yeah.
Okay. And then you went to nursing.
Yeah, so I did. I did my 6 years in the Navy, HMAS Melbourne, the aircraft carrier. Like I said, we did a tour up into the Indian Ocean so that was 1980. Then I went to New Ship to Brook when she was being built in 1981.
Yep.
Did a year there with HMAS Tobruk, and then 2 years at HMAS Watson in Sydney, 2 years at HMAS Moreton in Brisbane. It was during my time with Melbourne and Tobruk that I was engaged to a beautiful young lady who was going through her nursing training. And I got very interested in the combination of people and science through what she was doing as a nursing student. And I'd pick her up from the hospital of a night shift and things like that. And so I got to see the wards and around, and it started to appeal as a concept. And as I got further into particularly into the sort of the HMAS Moreton period of time, I couldn't see myself being a petty officer, radio supervisor. It didn't appeal as a long-term career in the Navy.
Yep.
But the nursing side of it was becoming more predominant, something that I thought was very interesting. And as it turned out, I discharged in Brisbane. HMAS Moreton is based in New Farm in Brisbane. And Queensland was one of the last healthcare systems that had nursing schools as part of the hospital.
Okay.
So you did your sort of apprenticeship rather than as a university-based undergraduate degree, which means you got paid.
Okay. Yeah.
And so going from a paid workforce in the Navy to a paid workforce in healthcare, in fact, I was unemployed for 0 days because I discharged the same day as I started as a nursing student at Princess Alexandra Hospital. So that's transitioning then into the nursing career. During the time I was a nursing student and early into my registration, I actually ended up in the Army Reserve for a couple of years. You remember I was a military policeman for a little while.
Oh, okay.
So after about 6 months of being a nursing student, I got a little sort of wanderlust for the Defence Force contact. And I didn't want to be a radio operator anymore because I'd already done that sort of thing. And if I became a medic with the Army Reserve, it's a busman's holiday because I was actually doing more as a nursing student than I would have been as a trainee medic, which would have taken, forever as a reservist. And the military police were recruiting. And I got to play with motorbikes and guns, and I didn't have to, didn't have to join the Comancheros to do it. And that was great. And the other thing with the military police is once you qualify, you pick up rank as a corporal straight away.
Okay.
So I was able to sort of, and that was good fun. It was got away to a couple of big exercises and rode motorbikes in the process, and in a special role, and that was good. But then once I registered, etc., ended up then looking at how I might be able to re-enter the Defence Force as a registered nurse, and that was the next part of the career. Yeah.
Okay. So how long were you in the Defence Force for, all up?
32 years, 4 months, and 16 days.
At least it didn't say the minutes.
16 days.
And what deployments did you do? Because I know you did a few.
Yeah. Well, as far as operational deployments, not to exercises and the like, there were two to East Timor. Mm-hmm. So the first one was at the end, or just at the start of the year 2000. So you remember there was the Interfet, which was the international force led by General Cosgrove, went in at the end of 1999 after the election of the independence resolution by the people of East Timor. So I missed that very first part, but then was a replacement for a nursing officer who did deploy into that place at Ballabo, which was on the border, the border location for the patrol base for in that instance it was 57 RAR.
Yep.
And I was part of the medical support team for them in their RAP, their trauma team at Ballabo. And then again, went back almost exactly 12 months later with the 1RR deployment under General Caligari, or later General Caligari. Very interesting experience between what had happened in 1999 with the destruction of East Timor and a year later, and how the mission had changed for the military and particularly for the healthcare component. In the first deployment, of course, it was all about, and both were, all about, of course, supporting the troops, providing primary healthcare and trauma support if in the case of if there was any major issues. But then in the first deployment, we also had a major humanitarian aid component because no international aid groups were in yet. Or were very minor, based out of Delhi, whereas by the second time the country had started to establish itself. Healthcare system had started to resurrect, teachers were back opening schools and the like. And so the experience of the two was very, very different, and it's something I value having the experience of, to see that there was a good outcome progressing through. In fact, I've since visited on holiday and seen it in modern day, and it's fantastic.
Well, that's good, that's good. And what rank did you achieve before you retired?
Lieutenant Colonel.
So I think you told me once that you were the second highest ranked nurse in...
Yeah, but depending on how you measure it, pretty much. Yeah, I was very much on the track to Colonel, but as we'll perhaps explore of how the career ended, that wasn't going to be, that was the end stop. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, you've kind of alluded to my next question here, because I think that part of the answer to what you were alluding to then is part of the answer, which is how has your service impacted your life, for example, family, work, interests and attitudes?
Yeah, there was a major turning point. So the career was going along extremely well, and I was on a fast track to the highest rank, as it were. I was the first Army nurse ever to be panelled for Commander Staff College, for instance.
Okay.
Earlier in the career, I had been picked up for long-term schooling on a scholarship for a Masters in Health Administration, which I topped up with a Masters in Health, Public Health.
Yep.
So they're obviously grooming me for higher executive roles within the Defence Force, and certainly the panelling. So that's actually on the list to go to Command and Staff College, to go from Major to Lieutenant Colonel and eventually full Colonel and maybe Brigadier, as that would be today. But I'd been a part of, as part of that sort of grooming and part of my talents, I guess, I was worked very closely in a reform program for what they call garrison health reform. So we had this garrison health reform to basically take all of the garrison stuff, put it under Joint Health Command and leave the Army, Navy and Air Force with the combat healthcare responsibility, but supported through arrangements. And a part of that support being sending health workforce out into hospitals and ambulance services on secondment, giving them the experience, ongoing experience and preparation leading up to being finally fine-tuned as a healthcare team for appointment to a force deploying, so that the commander of that force would know that not only are his sharpshooters and his warfighters up to speed, but also his healthcare people are also up to speed with very high, highly sharpened skills. It was the implementation then that I was at the front of that push. That then, when it faltered, I felt very personally had difficulties with, which ended up with major depression and anxiety, and that was the end of that.
Okay, yeah. That's when you got out.
Well, that was 2010. I was sitting in my office in the Northern Queensland headquarters. We started our first Joint Health Command Regional Health Centre. I was essentially the CEO of the Northern Queensland healthcare system for Garrison. I was now responsible for not just Army, but Navy and Air Force facilities in the Northern Queensland area. So the sick bay at HMAS Cairns, 51 Far North Queensland Regiment's sick bay, and for the garrison component of the Air Force minor clinic or hospital at RAF Base Garbett. And a number of other things that came through at the same time, which made it an extremely complicated and very stressful job. And one day I just found myself running a mental treadmill that I saw the signs of, this is not good. I've had mate suicide from PTSD, and I know it was time to, I need to go and talk to somebody. And I was immediately off work for a number of weeks, came back home to the family, etc. And on the sort of final interview with my senior here in Canberra before I went to Townsville, they said basically, look, we don't think it's good for you to go back to that job. And so that was the end of that. Had 6 months to go for that command, then I would have been onto another job. And then, by the way, this is a command role. This is a very significant military role.
Yep.
The first time we had a joint health commander of our health region, and we failed.
Okay.
But it felt like I failed.
Yep.
And that was significant.
Okay, so I take it you then worked your way out of the military?
Yeah, look, I came back to Canberra, back into a staff role, and contributed to that as best as I could. But the long term then would have, the chance of promotion, I knew it was an easy selection for the selection board just to go, well, Clifford's this and Jones is that.
Yep.
Jones gets the Guernsey. So I knew that was going to be my ceiling rank. I had a couple of years to go until formal retirement, but I was going to be working for the same system, for the same people.
Okay.
Doing much the same.
Yep.
They did offer a very attractive job for another promotion, not a promotion, for another, once I sort of came through the acute part of the anxiety and depression, feeling not too bad. They did offer an extremely attractive job within the major hospital in Brisbane as Deputy Director of Clinical Services. That would have set me up for a civilian job particularly.
Yep.
Because that was, working as an executive in a what essentially is a private hospital. Mm-hmm. But same people, same situation.
Yep. Yep.
I thought the risk of it, as much as it would have been an attractive job, was going to be too much. And of the risk of it. So that's when I was discharged mentally.
Okay.
Was that mental?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So what did you do to help try and get yourself a bit better once you got out?
Yeah, well, once I got out, this is very interesting because I had somebody fairly recently from my past reflect that after I got out, there was a discussion amongst some people of what the hell happened to Colonel Clifford? I immediately stopped growing my beard, shaving my beard, immediately stopped cutting my hair. The earring went in within hours. Because I reflected that what I'd been is an army person almost from childhood, as I've explained. And what I want to try and do is to separate, I sort of reflected I needed to sort of identify a new, free, who am I position. And I imagine a lot of people have that difficulty of, particularly Defence Force personnel, and particularly, one of the things Defence does necessarily is to sort of break you down and build you up as part of the team and part of the identity.
Yep, I know where you're going.
And so when you come out after 32 years, 4 months and 16 days, what is your identity? There was no further progression within that culture.
Yep.
But what I essentially did was, that was that. I'm going to take whatever I've got coming on next. So grew the beard, big bushy beard, grew the hair, and tried to then identify, okay, well, I'm now free. What do I do? What interests do I have? What can I do to fill time? And I didn't sit around feeling sorry for myself or anything like that.
But I just want to cut in there.
Yeah.
One of the aspects that I know myself, talking to a lot of, whether they be veterans or people who have discharged from the forces in general, that you're built up with that camaraderie, but as soon as you retire, it's all pats on the head, well done, the door shuts behind you and all you hear is crickets.
Look, one of the difficult things is that people say that being in the Defence Force you develop friends and things, and the problem is you move every couple of years.
Yep.
And though there are some that I've since re-engaged with, there's a heck of a lot that I haven't. Just because of separation. You move on to the next posting, you move on to the next peer group. And it's that sort of way. So that it's not as big a. It depends on your personality, I guess, and what you like to do and whatever. But there are some who remain good friends, and there are others that I've lost contact with, and that's just the way of the world, and because that's the way you move around. And so changing friendship groups and peer groups and culture groups almost is something you're prepared for. And so I got a new culture group.
Yep.
One of the things that did help immediately I got out was the men's shed out at Page with the Veteran Support Centre. I highly recommended. Got onto them first, working with the DVA claim.
Yep.
For I'm now a gold card holder for being permanently incapacitated from major anxiety and depression, and a few physical injuries from my parachuting days and the like. I was 3.5 years in a parachute unit, which was fantastic. And then they also have workshops, a metal workshop and a wood workshop. Started hanging around the metal workshop in particular. I have no background in the physical trades, but I love watching the people working on a lathe and welding and stuff. And I had some things. One of my motorbikes needed little things done. So there were people there that could do those for me, which is pretty cool.
Cheapskate.
Oh no, it's pretty cool. I mean, these guys are all ex-veterans, and there was one guy in particular was an aircraft technician. He could weld anything to anything, that sort of thing. So that was great for a long while. Though it's interesting that the peer group that the veterans have amongst themselves, the Vietnam veterans versus the younger veterans, they're now that's a challenging thing for them.
Yes.
Because it's generational.
Yes.
And though I'm now 63, I'm not sort of a baby boomer. I've got a mindset of sort of Gen X. So I've got a younger sort of mindset. And it's a challenging thing for ex-services organisations to how do they engage with this younger peer group who are coming out of the various operations of the 90s and the like, post-Vietnam. It was through then that I engaged with I'd been with the Ulysses Motorcycle Club in the various postings I'd had, and what I found with Ulysses as a peer group, unless you're right into and actually make individual friends, if they had a ride on a Sunday or something or whatever, and you didn't turn up, nobody sort of rang and said, "Where's Cliffo?"
Yep.
Unless you were a personal friend with somebody who was expecting you to be there. That's when then I learnt of the Vietnam Veterans, then Motorcycle Club, later the Veterans Motorcycle Club. And there was actually out at Page where there was an event on, and ran into the then president and the then secretary and asked, what's the go? How do you? And they said, well, we've had this thing come out and, and ended up joining with them and becoming a patch member of the Veterans Motorcycle Club.
Okay.
The biggest thing as far as mental health support was that, where is he? There is a thing on, there is this meeting, there is this, bar night, there is this ride.
Yep.
And, where is he? Where are they? Are they okay? Is the first question. And that was hugely appealing. Plus it had that sort of, they had a cultural mindset of like the Defence Force in a way, not in that you have to do what you have to do, but things are being done and we do things, and so there was that everlasting joke of, for fuck's sake, Cliffo, sit down, even though I'm an ex-lieutenant colonel, etc., working for a bunch of guys that are, seamen or, petty officers or whatever, there's none of that rank. There is certainly respect for position within the club and for age.
Yep.
But my position was somebody entering the group, and if bins needed cleaning, that's fine. I can do that.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to do that because I am somebody that likes to volunteer and to do jobs like here with the what I'm doing here now.
Yep.
So I was with the Veterans Motorcycle Club for a long time, and that was hugely appealing. But then I picked up doing marshalling for motorsport in Australia.
Still motorcycling.
Still motorcycling. It was actually after an Anzac Day where the Veterans Club goes out to one of the country towns, as you know, for Anzac Day every year. And it was a Thursday, one of those years where Anzac Day falls in the middle of the week. And we're out that far, and all the oldies want to come back and come home and, get into their own bed and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, well, there's got to be something else to do while I'm out here. And there was a Australian superbike round down at Winton in Victoria that weekend. And I thought, well, that's not that far away. I'll go for it down and see what that story is. Yeah. And so I went down to there, and I got there on the day where they're bumping in. And there's bikes going around just doing, test laps and things. And there was just this old guy standing on the fence there next to the canteen, just this one person, me and him.
Yep.
And the other thing people know about Cliffo is he loves a chat.
Have you picked up on that yet?
Anyway, so I got talking to this guy and I said, what's the go? We're going down to see how the pits work. And he says, oh, my grandson actually rides in this competition. Come down. And I went down and I met a lovely young fellow called Tommy Edwards, who has since ridden internationally in World Superbike. And he's a fantastic young man. He's now married, and and I got to meet the family. And so straight away I met somebody who then later on very quickly became the 300cc champion in Australia here in Australian Superbikes. And I then worked out that, I can come and see these races, but I get bored in between the races waiting for the next event and that sort of thing. And again, with the volunteering thing, I was aware of the marshal system, generically speaking. And I asked the question, how do you do this? Mushka. Yep. You know, it's like most things.
They want someone keen to.
Well, community groups.
Will be there.
Well, it's all community groups need volunteers. You know, any community, whether it's Wheels on Wheels or people that help with the homeless with their laundry and all those kinds of things. We need volunteers. So, and again, with the page thing, it's all volunteers. You know, the DVA people that work with DVA for your claims are volunteers. You know. Mm-hmm. And so there was a volunteer opportunity, and so very quickly I signed up as a Motorcycling Australia Level 1 operational official. Yep. And started flagging, tracking and flagging, which means going out to the track to pick up fallen bikes or in a flag post with a flag system which indicates messages to the riders as they go around. Okay. And that's been great fun, and has led to international experience in America with MotoGP of course, and the like. Yeah.
And now you're expanding out to dirt track.
Yeah, so I spent many years, from 2016 was when I first signed on with Motorcycling Australia, and I was the only volunteer that went to every round of Australian Superbikes for many years, and that got okay. That was okay. It's a bit costly, and there was a change in the support organisation for a little while, and wasn't feeling quite as. We had a great promotions officer who used to really look after the marshals, and then she went on to another job, and then they dropped the ball a little bit, I feel, and this is no secret. And the marshals felt a little bit abandoned, I think, for a couple of years. Didn't quite get the little things that make somebody want to be a volunteer. Yeah. The welcome back, great to see you, here's a trinket, that sort of stuff. But last year I was invited by another good friend through the marshalling side of things, and in fact, funnily enough, an ex-defence person, that they wanted somebody keen and smart, whatever you want to call it, experienced, I suppose, to work with the flat track, national flat track, the flat track nationals, as a starter finisher. So that's somebody who at the start line keeps an eye on where the leader is, and as they go around then is ready to put the checkered flag out. And because it's only a very quick race, only anything from 4 to 12 laps, it's really something you've got to have a keen eye for. You've got to be on top of the game and that sort of thing. And now I'm sort of the go-to person for that, and I'm doing it again this year, that series, very soon, travelling around the country, going to each of those events. That got me into dirt track, and then come Christmas, it's funny because we're here at at Fairbairn Park, the ACT Motocross Club, Motorcycle Club, motocross track, and you've just seen the flat track over the back here. 50 years it's been here, and I've never been out here.
Oh, there you go.
So just before Christmas, I thought, well, now I've started doing flat track with the Flat Track Nationals. What's local, And I came out here, and it was wow, there's a great facility here. Yeah. And then I learnt what they have on. They have ride days. We've got a big national event, the Pro MX, coming up, which is a national event, the premier level of motocross. That's coming July 6th. And again, it's like, oh, who are you? It's like I'm a volunteer. I can do whatever. What do you do? Well, I flag. I do that. And whooshka, I'm now the chief marshal. So I'm looking after all the volunteers and doing the things that I think ASPK was doing. Want to make sure that they're welcome, get their skill sets up, make them feel like they are part of a new team of officials, and try and get a volunteer crew together to support these kind of activities for the community. Yeah.
Well, let me just say that even just talking to you today, I mean, you've come so far since that young 17-year-old that joined the Navy to where you are now. And look, I've known Cliffo for a number of years, as it is. And I might say that you are, I think, happier now than I've ever seen you with things, which is a good thing. Yeah. And I'd love to thank you for your time and your service, of course. All right.
Thank you very much, Victor. It's been great to talk to you.
And thanks for talking to me today.
No worries.
Cheers.